start us off?
Well, I'll start. Mine's pretty simple, I think. I was going back and I, if you could clarify exactly what you want me to do, I think it is looking at the comments from the Scholar course and synthesizing those and posting those at the end of the week. And the ones that was done last year, not what we're doing in the reboot, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the idea, this would be practice, so we can give you, so we can, sort of hash out exactly what, and agree on exactly what your role would consist of, and we can sort of fine tune things.
Right. And so I'm in the process of locating those and finding those. And my thought is, a lot of the comments are attached to updates. So my perception is it'll be a little bit of, I might get a sense of what was bothering people or what they liked or something to that extent. So it's a little bit of a review of the update as well as what their comments were, is what I'm finding right now. Does that fit with your perception?
Okay, sorry, folks. Yeah, I see Juan is also having connection problems. I dropped off just when Barbara was answering a question or following up on the task of collecting comments and weaving them into narrative, into a meaningful narrative. Barbara, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, and I see my inputs and outputs are
to here. Sorry about that. For some reason, my laptop Wi-Fi disconnects as soon as I sit comfortably in my garden. So yeah, I think so. Basically, this is Friday of week 1. So technically, basically, what would be wonderful would be if on Friday, at the end of the day on Friday, then all of the participants of each week, participants receive the summary of the week in an update, and can sort of if they've had no time to read all the comments and so on, they know they can look for Barbara's update and get a summary of what actually happened, what was said that was really interesting or relevant, or the insights shared and so on.
what I've done so far is I went back and I found the July of 16 scholar comments and updates and everything. And so I've been reviewing those. I went to admin's post, which is your regular course updates, and there's a lot of comments on those. So I've barely started looking at those, but the thought was, well, let me look at those first, because that would probably be the most meaningful. Either people liked what they read or they might have a question. Anyway, that's what I'm exploring.
Okay.
Then I might look at if I don't get enough from that, then I might look at if there's some other things that participants just posted in comments. But there's so many of those. I'm hoping that I get enough that'll be the pertinent, because it seems to me that would be the most pertinent to learning, if they are responding with questions or, yes, this is good, I understand, blah, 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 to the actual updates, as opposed to some of the comments that some of us make when we're just wandering, like I often do.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So when do you think you would, do you feel ready to commit to doing the first?
I might get it done late today, my time, or first thing, or tomorrow morning before noon, my time.
Okay, well, yeah.
Because
Okay.
I had already started it, as opposed to posting other things after I edited my initial comment per your comments, and I hadn't posted anything else, and I just started on that.
Okay, cool. So Barbara to prepare or to deliver first. So what are you doing? Just week one?
Yes, right now just week one.
Okay.
But I have it all pulled up, but
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. Okay. Yeah, and I saw your revised July 4th update. So I really liked that because it was short and to the point. It did feel like the really interesting part of the point about sort of effort and commitment and what it means to be engaged and to be sort of intrinsically motivated to bake a pie or just participate, help build a digital course. I thought that could still be sort of weaved out more, but maybe that's just me, where I like to make things explicit. Yes, but that to me, that one is one of the ones that should go into the should go into the learning module as a resource to move things along in the during the orientation week, I think. Yeah. So yeah, and then I'm thinking that week 2 is when we'll actually double down on the explainers and each of you telling your stories of your experience last year and actually what's happened since, for the same reason that we decided to do a reboot. Many of you have seen or observed, or you've shared that you've sort of progressed in your thinking, in your activities, and so on. So yes, it's okay to share that. And I think Matt's update, I don't know if you've had the time to read it, is really really speaks to that point. But anyway, since we're supposed to be doing a round robin, I'll shut up and let's go to Iris.
Okay, so what I did was try to revise the questions. I didn't really change what was written from what I had written in the learning module. And then I saw that you said there were too many questions. Well, when I looked at the old questions, I mean, the first question really had about 3 questions in there. Where you live, what you do, and what you expect to get out of the course. I was thinking that would be like 1 paragraph. And for question 2, which was about the course, I had only like specified online course, just to specify it that way. And then what really had differences were the 3rd and the 4th questions. And I wouldn't have separated them like you did, because I was thinking that the questions would have been answerable by yes or no. Like, have you taught an online course? Yes or no. Have you developed an online course before? Yes or no. And what platform would have been like a short answer. So I didn't think of actually separating that. Question four, instead of digital transformation of learning, I think was the old question. I just put, what were your expectations of the Scholar platform? I saw that you had given me the link to the pre-course questionnaire, and you said that some of the questions are repetitive. Um, but then you had asked the same question, so maybe the value, I don't really know, is that then we can see it in more granularity, or I don't know, was it the way to actually onboard the people and make them recall what they had said in the pre-course questionnaire?
Mm.
uh, and then
Yeah.
because when you have it in aggregate, it's more customized to the individual answers. Although having scrolled down through 141 comments, I can see where where your point that maybe people won't read it all. But me being used to Twitter, I usually just scroll, and like I like the serendipity of discovering something. So of course, not everyone is gonna be like that. And not everyone is going to read all 141. But then the other issue you asked was whether it should be like in the comments or in the updates. And generally, I would agree that perhaps the comments would be better, because then people will get overwhelmed by the updates, because it's just the first day and they wouldn't know how to turn up the updates as yet.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
just like keep it in school too because I check myself.
Okay. I think Barbara's not talking to us. Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah. I so again for me, what we need to zero in on is sort of strip all the fat, to strip anything that doesn't actually contribute directly to helping people succeed in with their course project. However, that introductory activity is a time when we have the greatest percentage of the people who signed up who are active and who are going to respond to something that we do. So to me, asking sort of in a way it's kind of interesting but general questions about what they want to about their intentions is kind of wasting that energy, because we know after this point there'll be the next time we ask a question or suggest an activity, the number of people who respond will be half of the 140 who respond to this one. So it's like your first shot yes, that you get. And to me this feels like um like, so that's one other reason not to have it as an update, because I think we're in agreement on this point, is if you have all of a sudden 140 updates appear in the community, people are just going to get confused and run away screaming. So it's like, yeah. At the same time, I question. So I trust you experienced the course. So there's obviously something we need to get at there.
I don't really remember what I answered in the pre-course questionnaire, because that was a year ago. But my thinking is, um, if some of the questions were repetitive, what was the point of asking it again? Uh, so so I was thinking it would make it visible to the others aside from just you as the administrator. That's what I was thinking. But I also get your point that we don't want to ask too many questions. So now the point is, if you're going to ask questions, which ones will it be? And should it be like radically different from what we had already asked in the pre-course questionnaire?
So yeah, so to me, I can answer your question, but I don't know what that means in terms of what we should ask in the update. So my answer would be, we need to ask them things that will get them thinking in scholar terms, get them sort of to begin that journey. So it's sort of, okay, they are here, and the sort of the door to the scholar approach, and thinking in terms of moving away from transmissive kinds of learning, moving towards peer review, moving towards project and problem-based learning. We need the question that will get them to, and that will get them to wherever here is, and move them to, get them closer to going through that door. I mean, I actually think of it, so it's not a question of faith, there is some evidence and sort of tangible stuff, but it does feel like, like if you're inviting, okay, so someone who's always had, I don't know, who eats nothing but hamburgers 3 times a day, and you want to get them to try, yes, couscous. Yes. So how do you, what's the question that you ask to get, yes, that will, and I feel free to contradict me if in your experience people take well to having this many questions thrown at them in a single sort of assignment or activity or task. My experience by all means is, and what we've learned to do, is to really cut down the number of questions. Closed questions don't tend to work that well, because then people just answer yes or no, and you actually don't know, you don't necessarily know what they're referring to, so that gets confusing. Open-ended questions, or open questions, tend to work better if they're about sharing experience. But then one of the things we've been trying to do, for example, with the ambulance course, is sort of one update, one task, one question. Yes. So
now that I've actually seen the pre-course questionnaire summary that you sent, and it says there, for example, that 70% have not heard of Scholar and only 30% had, then I was thinking maybe the question should take off from what information we already got from the pre-course questionnaire. So let's not repeat any of the questions you'd already asked, but then think of new questions based on the information that we got from the pre-course questionnaire. So if 70% had not heard of Scholar, then we need to ask a question that leads them to an understanding of that.
Right. But yeah, I like that. So that would be like, so that could be like an update in which, even if it was in a live session, we presented this data from the survey, from the questionnaire, then we use the screenshots, the graphs in the update, sharing some information. So we are giving something to people who are coming in. They get a sense of collectively who we are. And then we need the question that will allow them to differentiate themselves, which sort of speaks to Aaron's, how do I find my tribe? So like, here is who we are together. Tell us about who you are as an individual. Yes. Maybe it's really, and that's not directly related to, yes, to the course project. So, I'm just looking at your, and I posted the screenshot of your comment. You said, I find the digital transformation of learning very exciting. Yes. And I'm excited to start learning.
I don't remember saying any of them.
Is that funny how how memory works, right?
Maybe this is Barbara. Maybe we said something before, but I don't remember. Maybe a question trying to get people to identify what was it about the class announcement that got their attention, because that was something that's always been really strong in my mind, because the whole concept of democratizing education just really excited me. And beyond any of the other stuff, wanting to learn technology, thinking I could manage the time, blah, blah, the whole idea of democratizing education really excited me. I'm not, I don't know if there's enough in the course announcement that a lot of people would come up with different things, but that, that might be something.
So what? That's interesting too. So I would see. So here's who we are collectively, with some of the graphs from the application form, and then, your task in this. You have one task to complete in this update, and the task is to answer one question. What about Digital Scholar got you excited enough to sign up?
That would be very specific. But then, okay, that would be very specific. I'm just wondering what kind of answers we would actually get.
Yeah.
That would be different.
Yeah. I mean, basically on this one, what I remember from the 141 comments, which I did read because I then wrote that article to weave these answers, is that most people just ended up sharing stuff that was important to them rather than answering the actual questions. Yes. And some very diligent people, such as Iris, and I'm betting Matt and Juan, and actually let's pull out. Let me see if Juan answered. Oh wow, okay. How do I screenshot this? Okay. I hope this is not embarrassing for you, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just yes, Matthew. Yeah, okay, and this is Matthew's. There, and then Aaron. And I think it's telling that, I mean, I would bet that if we check the list of completers, that all of them introduce themselves here. So let me just wait until that. So that's Aaron's. That's Matt's. That's and that's Juan. If you want to take a look at it, obviously I don't have one, but you have 80 pages of updates in which I introduce myself. Yeah. So yeah, are we? Yeah. So how do we work ourselves out of this? Because we're still on week 0, like day 1, right? Through this discussion, I'm trying to think, why are we we're not stuck, and I think some aspects of this have been fascinating, but how do we keep moving?
I guess we'll just have to agree whether we're going to ask a question or we're not.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree we're just going to ask one question.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I feel that should be a ground rule or rule of thumb. Of course, if we think of an incredible, really useful second question that would enlighten the course team and, sort of change the, sort of multiply the engagement by the learners, and we might go for 2. Is that yes? But yeah. So what is the course that you'd like to develop? That's actually the first activity in which people post an update with their course title, so we don't need that one. Your experience and expertise in digital learning. I guess in there what's relevant is that most people are likely not to have used Scholar before. I actually think, especially from the foundation's perspective, that the digital transformation issue or concept is a really important and useful one for anybody working in learning, education, and training today. So, yes, but maybe that can be a separate activity, yes, addressed to people who are working from a face-to-face context and thinking about the transition. So it's like step one is for most people is going to be you've been doing face-to-face, you decide to go digital. Step two is when you go digital, you realize that there are all these different approaches. There's Moodle, there's MOOCs, there's all these, and then there's Scholar. So what distinguishes Scholar from these other approaches? So I wouldn't deal with that in the introduction. I mean, if you think about, it's also about sort of being provocative, like what, in the same way that Barbara said the course announcement kind of grabbed her because it talked about democratizing education, not just more people accessing MOOCs or not just open access to content, but something else, enabling people as creators, as so and I think that sort of where you go, oh, that's yes. I think we need that kind of question too. In the same way that the video you chose, Iris, actually does just sort of wakes you up. Yes, people have dozens of online courses in which they can learn about online learning. So I think we need to sort of distinguish ourselves even in that first introduction. Yes.
I'm actually looking at the first blog post I ever wrote when I got into Scholar, and I did sort of like a definition of terms. So like it said here, I'd not heard about Scholar before, and then what I did was to go to info about Scholar, and then I extracted a short description. But there's also one term here that you said that I said I had to look up, productive diversity.
Yep.
So I was thinking if I was the only one who didn't know what that was, that might be a good question. Something related to that.
Right. So that's one of the seven, or that's a key concept in Bill's and Mary's. I'm sure you know by now of of new learning. So it sounds to me like, I mean, there were things that sort of struck you, that sort of spiked, sort of piqued your curiosity or made you connected with, where you just thought it was like a different way of approaching or describing education or learning, and that might be a key to sort of engagements. Do you think that's the case? Like, I think if like there's something new here, there's something interesting going on here, and so maybe we can ask, so the point of that, the question I suggested would be like, well, what is that? Yes, what is it that's got you excited enough to, sort of come in and try this? And
so I copy pasted for my blog what I had found about productive diversity.
Yep.
And there was a quote about harnessing multiliteracies to add value.
Yeah, that sounds like either a student of Bill's or yes, that's also Karen Becker. I'm just looking to see if she's ever worked with Bill Cope. The best types of dog foods. Okay, maybe not the same. Maybe not that Karen Becker. Okay, Becker, now 1992. Okay, so it is linked to multiliteracies. Yeah. So that's what you found. That sounds like someone coming from the same sort of strand. Maybe we can ask people to. Maybe that could be an activity, sort of, around the term or concept that they've discovered sort of matters to course design, to actually look it up and share a definition of an interesting concept that's come up. So I'm not suggesting that for the introduction. So, and I hope this isn't frustrating, but just so, I mean, I'm, at my age, I sort of know how I work. So I know that my tendency to sort of explore in all directions, yes, sort of toward the horizon can be very frustrating for people who are more eager than I am to funnel down and get to something specific and concrete. So that's my limited self-awareness. Just so let me know if I mean, when it comes down to it, there is a time to when to make decisions, and discard all of the rubble and stop exploring. But yes, so let me know if you think we've gotten to that point.
Basically, we really just have to decide that question, or maybe not a question, but an activity to start off their scholar experience.
So yeah, so I mean, in Digital Scholar, it was very specific. It was post an update in which you share your course title and you say something about you say something about it. Yes. So that's that's sort of week 1, day 1.
Yeah, but that's like starting it out cold. It's like we haven't said hello. So,
right.
But then we don't want to just say hello. We want to say something more than just hello, actually.
Well, so I'm of two minds about that. I mean, I've been sort of trying to be more and more utilitarian, given this problem of how people get confused when there's more information than what they're comfortable with, sort of funneling down and being very utilitarian, like, don't write a sentence unless it is actually helping, or don't ask for people to do anything unless it's actually helping them develop their creator project. At the same time, human beings are social, right? And so there is great value to activities that you're completely futile. So maybe, and that's kind of what I loved about the no, it's not Dory, it's the one before, the shark video. Yes.
Yeah, that was from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Or maybe just like share a favorite quote about online learning, or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that distinguishes people with some, it's not even formal background, but like what distinguishes someone who's come into learning through the technology door versus someone who's actually explored pedagogy is they are more likely to have at least sort of, the names of one or more learning theorists. Yes. So in mind. So whether that, I mean, that could be someone from today, like George Siemens or Bill Cope and Mary Colansis, but it could be John Dewey or or anybody else. So maybe, and so that if people coming into the course, like to position the courses, this is for educators, and education is not something, just because there's a digital transformation now, we're not reinventing, we're not starting from scratch. We have, centuries of people trying to make sense of how people learn. And so if you don't have any theory background, then you would learn from those comments, and you might get curious enough to say, oh, who is that John Dewey? Why does this guy seem so excited about him? Yes. So then that could be sort of share a favorite quote, yes, or share your favorite learning theorist, yes, and tell us why.
And then that would be interesting for you when you start weaving them together.
Yeah. Like if you've got a class full of people who think that Sebastian Thrun is, the greatest learning theorist alive.
If you were to do that, I think you need to have options within the questions. Though I've had some particular curriculum development courses and things, that would not be an angle that I would take. I would take a broader concept that may or may not be a traditional, my definition of it may or may not be the academic definition. It might fit within it or be acceptable as part of it, but I probably wouldn't phrase a definition of a learning theory in an academic pedagogy curriculum type of way. And I think there would be other learners similar to that. So I'm sort of rattling, but it's like, so if you ask that, you'd also have to say, or for the other type of learner, and put a title to what you would be asking them to do.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why I started off with just a quote. Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then read that learning theory, so maybe that's why it got scary.
But don't you think that's legitimate to say? I mean, on the one hand, I mean, I know at least one person who's like a guru of learning. Basically got very angry with me because he said that by doing this digital scholar initiative, basically saying, well, anybody can learn to design the course, that I was cheapening, and sort of demeaning the value of, the value of education, and sort of making it sound like anybody can do it. Makes it sound like there's no expertise, there's no professional value, and people who've sort of dedicated their lives to the practice and the theory and practice of education, must be idiots because anybody can do it just by taking a 4-week course. And my response to that is, that's an extremely, I mean, that's an elitist, position. That's defensible. I can see the point. But we don't claim we're going to turn everybody who takes the course into a learning guru, but we do claim that this stuff can and should be accessible to the greatest numbers who are willing to make the effort. And when they do so, the first part of that effort is learning about the body of work, the corpus, that makes education not just a hobby, or unlike macrame or knitting, or just sort of strumming Stairway to Heaven on a guitar, but that actually makes it a science and an art. And one of the ways to do that is to ask people about their favorite learning theorists. Yes, like if you can't name anybody, then that would get you thinking. Okay, so I'm great at what I do. I have great subject matter expertise in my in a specific area. But for me to be but this course is about education, and so all of a sudden I realized that's the case. That I have something to learn.
If I may interject something, one of the things that I've been thinking of based on this overall discussion is when the course first started, and I've actually done it with every course I've taken, but much more on the very first one, I was very curious to who was taking it. And so I went and read all their bios and really took a lot of time. I think just about everybody. And I would get disgruntled when, there was just a name and I live in something. I wanted more information. I did find that those that wrote more, there were a lot of people that had different technology related jobs. So obviously they were attracted to this because they saw it a little different, but they had an expertise in technology of some way. One of the other things I did, and I still don't know how I might ever use it, but I went and asked for people to accept a peer. And I did people that I wanted diversity globally. I looked for, I'm not good at technology. So like Matt stood out to me because he said he was, and I wanted him as a peer. And folks that were intrigued me with what they wrote, I asked for them. And then at different times, somebody is like, oh, that's not me at all. But I would ask for them because I wanted the diversity. So I don't know if that helps, but it does speak to why we might like to know more about someone. And both the general as well as the specific can be very helpful.
Yeah. Oh. All right, comments from Juan, because I think that the Hangouts, just like the GoToTraining, don't save the comments. Could we try something along the lines, how are you planning to build on the unique scholar affordances to generate value to your course? Okay, so I am taking notes on these discussions in addition to recording them, because I know I will never have time to watch these recordings again. Helping participants identify, okay, in addition to learning theory, I would also suggest helping participants identify the unique type of MOOC design in Scholar generating and sharing learning. Yeah. Okay, and then Iris says, my favorite learning theory would be connectivism. And Juan, yes, connectivism, we could help participants identify from the early stages. Okay. All right, we're technically 15 minutes over time. It feels like, so, okay, is anybody else feeling like we are sort of being sidetracked by this, basically the issue of how human beings socialize, in the early stage, in the sort of opening sequence of a distance learning, of a digital learning sequence? Or do you really?
I don't think we're being sidetracked,
No?
because, as you said, this is the first opportunity where we will have all of them very actively watching out for the first thing to do. So maybe that's why we're taking a lot of time figuring out how do we hook them into it and keep them there.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't heard at all from Matt, Aaron, and only in chat from Juan. You guys want to chime in? Matthew, Aaron? Okay, maybe not. You're both muted, so you need to unmute yourselves.
Hello? Hello?
Yes. Yep.
Hey, Retta, this is Matt. I'm listening to you guys at the same time that I'm snaking out a toilet. So it's probably better for me not to comment so that you guys don't hear all the background.
Okay, thank you for
sorry, but that's what's actually happening.
Sharing more information than yes, social mores typically allow. But hey, we're all about being candid with each other, right?
Hi, this is Erin. Can you hear me?
Hi, Erin.
I just need to kind of read through. I'm a little behind. Yesterday was kind of not, I wasn't snaking a toilet, but it was a day like that yesterday. So I'm trying to catch up over here. So I need to like look at everybody's contributions from yesterday and find out where I fit in that scope before I can really speak and add any value to the convo.
Okay. I mean, I'll tell you that I think that's for a sort of first week of figuring out, as we're figuring out how to make this work, this has been amazingly productive. There's some. So I feel my responsibility now, so that you guys feel it's effort sort of well spent, is to go back and put these different updates into the new learning module. So I have, let me see if I can just zero in on, here. Yeah, can you guys see this? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I had, So I've created a learning module, which you all have access to. And so, I think we haven't necessarily resolved, we haven't found the one question where all of us go, oh yeah, that's it, right? But we've got some great ideas. We've got some clearly identified sort of roles in terms of the scaffolding, with Barbara doing the weaving and Erin doing the, sort of filling in the gaps of comprehension and that we know people are likely to encounter. Matt, Hannah, who've both made sort of contributed stuff that we hope will help people sort of ascertain what is different about the scholar approach, so not just the platform but the pedagogy. So it feels like, to wrap up the week, we need to put it into a learning module so we can see what, and remember, of course, when we actually run this course, that might be with a hindsight of the 4 weeks of work we're doing this week, plus the time during recruitment and enrollment when we'll be looking at people's profiles and so on. I think that's also part of the flexibility of the approach, is that we don't have to resolve these dilemmas right away. So, tell me if you disagree, if you feel or if you feel that's not the right approach, but that's what it feels like to me.
Just one other quick comment, Retta. One of my thoughts too is obviously I think there's some value to what Iris has raised with this. It's just coming up with the right sort of specific question. But it also made me think, as you move to talking about different affordances and things like that, there might be other one questions beyond what's already in the module that would also lend some insights about people, how they might respond to that. So that's a sort of a hypothetical thought, but it seems to me those questions might rise up as we do that. So that might be something to add. Maybe every week there's one question that is beyond what's in there already that captures something along those lines.
Yeah. So one kind of provocative exploratory question.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
They could build on each other, or it could be, a standalone question related to what's going on that week.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay, but do you guys feel like what I would like to? Well, I don't know if we can try. So if we say that this was actually orientation week, yes, then I'm interested in outcomes at the end of. If we're gonna be spending our time on this, we need to be able to see tangibly that we've produced something at the end, right? And at the end of each week. So I'm thinking that we should be able to pull together orientation, but then when I think about the orientation sequence, we don't have welcome videos from the course team. And there's a question about how, where we can improve there. Obviously the sort of headshot, talking head, that's easy enough to do. But I think there's the same kind of discussion. A lot of these welcome messages tend to be bland and, boring, to be honest. That's why one of the tests for the apprentices was to see what you guys would do with putting together that welcome, that sort of introductory message video, if you remember that activity from several months ago. So to do a proper sort of orientation sequence, let me just go see what some the learning module from last year. Whoops, no, that's not it. All right, and I realize we're way over time, right? In terms of okay, here we go. So this is a much more elaborate sequence than the ones we've done in courses in 2017. So Welcome to the Digital Scholar course has a message from Catherine Russ. So it's just one person from the course team. And so, okay, so the welcome message, okay. Yeah. Yeah, and then has a tutorial to show you how to find your way around. So that's one. Then an explanation of how the course is organized, which you'll get from the course team, what you're expected to contribute, what you're encouraged to get, a few words of advice, some tips. Okay, already there's like a book to read, what to do if I feel overwhelmed, and then some collaborative guidelines. Then something about working offline, a guide to week 1. So that's sort of towards the end of orientation week. And that tells you what updates are going to be posted. It doesn't actually, okay, and then it tells you to start your creator project on Tuesday. Then you get an explanation of what is the rubric. And that's the end of the orientation week. Can you guys tell me what your recollection is of that orientation week? We didn't call it that. We called it week 1 back then, I guess. Well, no, it was the week before, right? Week 1. But can you tell me what your recollection is? Was it useful? Was there already too much stuff? How do you think, in addition to the couple of things we've produced and so sort of ideas for improved scaffolding and specific updates, what do you feel if you strip away all the fat? What are the sort of essential things to share, to your tasks, information for people during that week? Any takers?
I'm actually trying to pull up the ambulance course learning module that I was trying to do, because I recall that that one had I think 6 days of orientation week, which with very specific tasks per day.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 So that reflects So that's meet your group team leader. So meet the course team. Post a message to welcome them. We can ignore the language specific stuff. So day 2, watch the pre-course briefing, register for the discussion groups, ask any other questions that you have. Day 3, this is where we introduce sort of participation guidelines, to help people. And this was especially relevant for ambulance folks because, they're local and community based. If you work in Manila, it's not every day that you get to interact with people from halfway across the globe. So we thought it was important there. But the point is to have an activity that focuses people on their responsibility, sort of encourages them to be responsible learners. Day 4 is to introduce the cause, the sort of broader set of issues. So this would be like for a digital scholar, that would be like introducing the sort of theory of new learning to people. In this case, it's meeting the community of action, so the global network that's mobilized on ambulance issues. Day 5, so in orientation week, we actually introduce the creator project by sharing the rubric, explaining basically that that's going to be your main focus for the next 4 weeks. So that's the orientation sequence here. Of course, here, the purpose is different. There's another layer in Digital Scholar that's unique to Digital Scholar, is because we're addressing educators and we're really showing them Scholar so they can experience it, but in order to learn to use it for themselves. Whereas in the ambulance course, we just want them to know what to do in order to get their coursework done. But that's just in terms of sort of doing very specific task-oriented updates. This is sort of the greatest amount of clarity we've gotten. But I'd still love to hear your recollections of last year's orientation. And Iris, because you actually put together, you're actually building this learning module for the ambulance course. What your reflections and insights are on it?
Well, it's very lean, because as you said, there's no extra layer. Looking at it now, I'm wondering, where they actually engage with the Scholar platform, like getting around, the updates and posting their updates, already on week 1, I think.
Yeah.
As far as recalling what happened last year, I remember that you had an update on how to get around Scholar, that also included how to sign up. And I remember asking you when I made the learning module that I would cut that out, because then if you're in there, it means you'd already done it.
Yep. So what we do now is this onboarding page. Yes. So there's a message about orientation week, which is basically encouragement. Then you're told there are 2 websites that you're going to use in the course. We're actually adding WhatsApp to this. So there'll be 3 tools. There'll be Scholar, GoToTraining, and WhatsApp. You register for the discussion groups. You create your account in Scholar, and this is where you get the tutorials outside of Scholar, obviously, because you're not in there yet. And you create your account, you join the community, and then and actually here we have the introduction as a kind of, so you've jumped through all these hoops, so you finally get to do something other than follow instructions. We want to end on something constructivist and connectivist also, where you connect with someone else and you produce something tangible. And then we also have, to sort of bookend my message, we have a course participant who's now become a team leader and who's going to be leading the course in September. So he tells you what, sort of why it's worth going through these steps. And then there's some additional resources at the bottom of the page. And I actually do not remember if there was a page like this for last year's. No. There wasn't for Digital Scholar, right? I think we figured out how to do this with the collective impact for computer science education was the first time we did that. Do you remember, Juan? And Juan actually produced these beautiful videos for this, far more professional than what I do, which I think you guys saw through in the apprenticeship. So basically, anything before Scholar we do on that web page. Okay, no, I couldn't hear you, Juan. And then the learning module starts with people having created an account, joined the community, and basically having watched some tutorials about navigation and so on. Those are the assumptions we can make about people coming in. Okay, yeah, type away, Juan. I'll read your message as soon as it comes up. Yeah, any other recollections of last year's? And what can be improved for that orientation sequence? Because again, if you want to, I'd like to be able to start on Monday with orientation that works, a short set of updates for orientation. Basically
Barbara,
sort of.
One of the things I remember is I was one of the ones at the very first course, Scholar course I took. I was one of the ones that felt overwhelmed, though you kept encouraging throughout the beginning, don't feel. And then you had the call, and I felt less overwhelmed by hearing that most everybody was sort of in the same boat. It was a new format and this kind of thing. Speaking to how much is in there now, so I'd gone through all of that and felt overwhelmed, but by the second week, it seemed like that was nothing because there was so much more information introduced. Now, I personally really liked, I didn't always get to all of it, but I liked having it there that I could just go to and review and read when I had the time. And that was where the value of the things you had pulled together really, really showed up, because it was there if we had the time and if we wanted to explore more. And so it sort of did away with the overwhelming, even though it was a lot more information than than was there the first week. So maybe some of that is, it's a good tension maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, I know I wrote that blog post about how trying to justify for the fire hose by saying, look, this is just like the world we live in. We live in a world of knowledge abundance where we're all overwhelmed by too much information. So if you can't figure out, if as an educator, you're going to need to figure that out anyway, how you deal with that. And it sounds like all of you did do exactly that, because even the most diligent, amongst you, the most diligent amongst the participants, so people like yourselves, ended up ignoring, like I think Iris in putting together the learning module commented that she had never had the time to look at the backstage passes, and Juan said some of the same things when he went back and sort of started compiling the sort of operations handbook for Scholar. He discovered lots of resources that he simply didn't have time for, and that's okay. I think we need to sort of communicate, to convey to people that it's okay. It's not like a course where you're told to read chapter 1, and you know that if you don't read the entire chapter, when the professor calls on you to answer a question, if you've only read half the chapter, there's sort of a 50% chance you're not going to know the answer. You're not going to be able to recall the answer. So that's old learning, right? And new learning is, we accept uncertainty. We accept, not being able to keep up with everything and reading every update or viewing every video. Within that world, though, then I also think that, and I think this is where the sort of paring down, or pruning or trimming the fat approach can be useful, is at the same time, isn't our responsibility as educators to be the guides, to say, okay, well, these are the things you must do. Here are the tasks you really have to complete. And then here's all this other stuff that are actually, like, each update is actually opening a door to, if you want to spend 2 days full time reading about connectivism, start with the update, that sort of excerpts a few interesting tidbits from George Siemens and go from there. Yes, something like that. Juan says, I can get my audio to work, but I'd like to add, in the first week, we should support participants to identify what Scholar can do for their learning strategy and for their role as course designers, so they see the potential from the first week, because this awareness ultimately shapes, enables, and constrains the features of the course proposed by the participants. So I agree to some extent, Juan. I mean, I did see so many course projects that didn't even, that didn't have a project of any kind, that were just like, read these chapters and then take a quiz. And so that's where I mean, that's one of the times when I thought, okay, maybe I haven't done my job. Yes. At the same time, until people have actually experienced for themselves this, what sort of new learning feels like, the experience of it, it's very difficult to explain. So you can tell people we can do a project, why not, instead of reading a chapter, give them a project to do in which they're all of a sudden going to be interested in reading the chapter, because they need stuff that's in the chapter to do the project. And that's a completely different relationship and way of setting up this learning process than prescribing a reading. So we can certainly give examples like that, but I've always thought it's more powerful, but maybe I'm wrong, to allow people to intuitively experience and feel what this does. And then hopefully, so they're smart enough to, to put some thinking into it and realize, oh, so maybe for my course, I could do it in this way, or in the cases of many of you, like Matt saying, oh, actually, that's precisely what I'm trying to do with engineering, design, problem solving. And, I guess, I mean, maybe one way to do it is, that we hope you'll have, in the welcome message would be to say, we hope you'll have a eureka moment. We hope that there's a lot of superficial stuff in education. Like, have you seen the TED talk about industrial age education by Sir Ken Robinson, or whatever his name is? Anybody familiar with that one?
No.
So let me see if I can, I mean, it's been seen by millions, TED Talk education, and superficially, it's really good, but there's also been a lot of criticism about it as being very superficial. Yes. Let me see. I found it, but now my browser is hanging. Okay. Okay. I think. Okay. Right. Whoops. Screen share. Okay, and now Google Hangout is hanging too. Oh. Okay, I think my computer is crashing down right now. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I've got a spinning beach ball of death on my screen, which if any of you work on Macs, that means, it's hanging. It's almost as bad as a blue screen of death, but yes, not quite. Anyway, that just so like again, I'm interested in that spark of creativity. Like what obviously, I can imagine you receive somewhere out of for over the internets this course announcement that you get that says, hey, there's this course called Digital Scholar, and there's got to be something about curiosity and sort of yearning for new approaches, something new, an interest, that sort of thing. I think I mean, that to me would be the common strand or identity that sort of binds us together. What yes. I have nothing to do with engineering, music education, endocrinology, medical informatics, or business consulting. Yes, if we look at our respective yes, areas of expertise, right? But here we are. So, yeah. Thanks, Juan, for posting that. So I think maybe that's the common strand we need to bring out is people to say, well, if you're yearning for something more, um, uh, many people have, who took the course last year reported having these kinds of eureka moments, these new insights into other people completely missed it. So I would see our job as sort of, somehow fostering, creating the conditions for people to have these Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We're 40 minutes over. We said 30 minutes. For me, this is time well spent. So I'm going to do my best to work on the learning module. You all have access to it, so feel free to go in there and put your update, in what you consider to be a final format. I'll be looking at them, and I will freely be making edits, as I work. And of course, you can then challenge me on those edits if you're unhappy with them. But I really want to get something that will make a simple set of updates that walks people through orientation, and and I think what we'd be missing from there would be the welcome messages from the so from us, basically. I wish there was a way to sort of, I guess we could do it in the Google Hangout, where we record a Google Hangout, and that's how we record a welcome message. I would love to fly you all to Geneva, or to Manila or Bogota, or or Chicago, or wherever, and all get together and do a video together. But that's not going to happen. So think about that, how we can do a welcome video in an interesting way, and engaging way around these sort of sparks of creativity and insight. And the thing that I think makes sort of sets Digital Scholar apart, I don't think it's just a scholar platform. What we mean by the approach, it's kind of like philosophy. I have this crazy theory that from this kind of stuff we're doing on the internet now, there will be like new religions born. If you're familiar with L. Ron Hubbard and how he came up with Scientology, at a science fiction writers convention once, he said that, as a science fiction writer, yeah, okay, sorry. I'm just blabbing on, but so I'll stop. But thank you so much for your patience and your diligence and your commitment. I'm going to try to honor that by putting together the learning module, and look forward to seeing you on Monday for week 2. And Juan, thank you very much for this week's sessions and format. I apologize for my limited participation, but I'm looking forward to catching up this weekend. Okay, great. Thanks.
Take care, all. Goodbye.
Yep. Yep, you too, Aaron. Have a great and wonderful weekend too, and same to you, Matt. Bye-bye.